What Hornet can the Charlotte Hornets least afford to lose? Maybe outside LaMelo Ball, we'll start off with that conversation. And then, we'll have to finish up some of the lists that we started over a year ago. It's been that long. That's all today on Locked On Hornets. I have one player, Doug.
We were number one. We left number one on the table.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free, and we're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. That was a surprise to Doug Branson, also on YouTube. You can find him on Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Yeah, what you were gasping, you were surprised over something. What's going on with you?
I know that was just me dropping a soundless boom. I was just trying to get the people that were watching. I like to give people that watch, the sickos that watch, I like to give them a little visual treat. But I've been warned, or I've been reprimanded too many times about interrupting you, and so I do it visually without words.
Okay,
and now I've given a lot of words.
Well, and somehow it's my own fault, I guess, but somehow you've interrupted me without saying anything at all because I was stopped dead in my tracks.
When you say nothing at all.
I just wanted to hear. I wanted to see what you were about, so I did because of the sonic boom. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Doug, we kind of did this question, done it twice, the Hornets that you would protect most. We've done this a little bit.
We did it, or you did it?
Well, we did the expansion protection draft thing last year before the deadline. It was asked again in the Walker mailbag / sicko satchel when you were gone. We did that. So I did it again. Now we're kind of dwindling this down for even two options maybe. If LaMelo is the most important Hornet this year, if that's the guy that you can least afford to lose, then who is the next guy on that list? This is something that you cooked up in your Bees machine. I don't know if that thing is still running or if it's in a radioactive wasteland somewhere. But the Bees machine said, this is the question today. Who is the Hornet outside LaMelo this team can least afford to lose?
Well, here's my question off of that question for you. Mm-hmm. How many you said two. You think you can only realistically make a case for two players?
Well, no,
I think I can make a case for, I'm gonna say I could. It's like a what's the name that tune? I think I can do this in 5 players. I think I can make a case for 5 players.
Name that tune. No, really, what I was talking about, I guess, just trying to figure out if the question should be besides LaMelo. Because honestly, if I was asking the question, if I'm the one that cooked this thing up, I would say outside of LaMelo and Brandon, who is the player that the Hornets can least afford to lose? I would put Brandon in that importance level. I just think it's easy that LaMelo is 1, in my opinion now. Brandon is pretty easily 2. Like, I'll go Brandon right off the rip. And then I think there's a real conversation to be had for Miles, Mark, whoever. Like, that's kind of the easy order I see. So if you don't, is it not Brandon to you if it's not LaMelo?
I think there's definitely a strong case for Brandon Miller, particularly if they are really serious about him shooting a ton of three-point shots, because it's not as if this team this offseason went and added a ton of shooting. I mean, certainly bringing back Seth Curry is going to help. The trade deadline from a year ago or from last season, that helped in adding some additional shooting. But this particular offseason, they didn't really go and prioritize that. And I guess you're banking on Miles Bridges shooting the ball a little bit better from 3 than he did last season. So there's a strong case there. But I think you could also make a case that Miles Bridges is very important to this team because of everything that he does rebounding-wise. I mean, he is a talented scorer. But also you throw in the rebounding there, something that I'm not sure that Brandon Miller is going to give you as much of in terms of physical rebounding that the Hornets might be short on as well. And Bridges was such an Iron Man last season that, just envisioning this team without him for half a season might be difficult to do, envisioning this team as a successful team. So I think you could also make a case for the guy that played the most minutes last season, Miles Bridges.
All right, so let's lock our answers in officially. I'll lock mine in with Brandon. Like if it's LaMelo as the guy that's number one, which I think we both agree there. We've seen it way too many times. When he's off the floor, this team struggles mightily, especially offensively. We know the numbers here. We've gone through the advanced metrics a million times. LaMelo, it's night and day what they can do offensively with him and without him. So if the next guy on that list to me is someone that I think greatly holds this team back if he's not on the floor, I do think it's Brandon Miller, partly because it's the future, partly because I think we could expect maybe a big-time sophomore jump. I think that's on the table. We've seen guys before, speaking of LaMelo, reach an all-star appearance by the time they get to their second year. If we get that Brandon, which we don't know for sure, I guess, but if you get that big jump from Brandon, then you might be depriving your team in this scenario by holding out another all-star player, which would be a real problem. If we need shooting, if LaMelo is a great shooter and you're worried a little bit about Miles shooting, we've had the one outlier, really good three-point season from him. That's it. So now you're talking about another shooter being off of the floor, some two-way like team defense stuff for Brandon. I still am actually not all that high on him point of attack right now. I think that can change. But team defense, he makes some smart plays. Yeah, I think that's why I would go officially locking it in. If LaMelo is number one, I'd go pretty solidly in his own tier, Brandon number two.
So, I'm really surprised that you didn't go with Mark Williams at the center position because, look, I know Nick Richards played a lot of starter minutes last season, but he's also been a little bit injury prone, and that is not, Nick Richards has his own issues at the center position as well, and I think Mark is so vital to this team being able to play competent enough defense to compete with some of the better teams in this league when it gets down to the wire playoff time. So, if you're because look, obviously, Brandon, of the list that we're making here, Brandon Miller is going to be the non-LaMelo best, most talented player on the roster and the player that they need to make the leap the most, and that is primed to make the leap the most. But just in terms of depth chart, I think you can make a strong case for Mark Williams because behind him and then behind Nick Richards, now you're going to be depending on 900-year-old Taj Gibson to give you minutes.
Who is? Give me the official answer. I need the Doug Branson, like you. What is Doug Branson's answer to this question? Not LaMelo. It could be Brandon. It could be Miles. It could be Mark. Nah, I need the official Doug Branson answer.
Well, and now that I think about it, look, obviously we've talked a lot about starters so far, right? Brandon, Miles, Mark, but your bench plays a lot of minutes, Walker. I mean, your bench is vital. You got to have depth in this league, particularly in a NBA now that is really about a war of attrition. And there's no player on this team that is more vital to the bench right now than Grant Williams, who also needs to shoot well if this team is going to, be sort of even middle of the NBA in three-point shooting. And Grant Williams, I was looking at these stats this morning, 80th percentile in usage for the Hornets last season, 60th percentile above average in points per shot attempt. But not only that, 85th percentile, really, really good assist percentage. Yes, he does turn the ball over a little bit more than you'd like, but he makes so many good passes from the post that he's setting up other players. Brandon Miller's not, no slouch when it comes to passing, but he's not Grant Williams level playmaker yet. So I think I can make a case for Grant Williams.
No, you could. Excellent answer. Official answer, Grant Williams / Trey Mann / Micic if he's on the squad.
Well, see, Micic, and now you say Micic, and maybe you're saying that flippantly, but he's coming off a really great Olympics performance and, former EuroLeague MVP, and a guy that if he improves his three-point shooting, talk about playmaking, I mean, he's got it in bunches, and he could step up and be suddenly the X factor, the key, the guy that nobody saw coming out of anywhere, and if they lose that guy, then they could be in trouble. I think you can make a case for Vasa Micic.
Super interesting conversation. I say we continue this not only for the rest of this episode, but going into the rest of our episodes throughout the week. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets.
We get to the Exhibit 10 contracts and say why those E10 guys may be the Hornet that Charlotte can least afford to lose. That's all still to come here on LOH. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins with eBay Motors. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. I ask this hesitantly, reluctantly, everything that shows some fear as to what this answer is going to be. But did you have an official answer for the question last segment?
I do have an official answer to the player that the Hornets can least afford to lose, and the sort of the implication of this statement is least afford to lose if they want to make the playoffs. Are you ready? Drum roll.
Yeah.
It's not good. I'm going to eliminate them one by one because I nominated Vasa Micic. I don't even know if he's actually going to be on the team. I'm still. They were the Hornets were celebrating his accomplishments for Serbia in the Olympics, which makes me think that he's going to be on the team.
If he is the answer, then and they don't have him and they lost him, well then great. Just throw this season out the window.
All right. Grant Williams almost was my answer because I do believe like he is going to be the most important bench player, and sometimes your most important bench player is better than your top 4 or 5 guy. So, but it's not going to be Grant Williams. I almost went Brandon Miller, but there are, if Trey Mann, he's still got some room to improve. Like if they lost Brandon Miller for half a season, I think there are things that Brandon Miller does that they could possibly replace. It would be very difficult. But Mark Williams, I think my answer is going to be Mark Williams. If they don't have that guy anchoring the middle and him improving, I think they're going to have a difficult time playing defense.
So Mark would have been third for me if I was going on the list. If it was LaMelo, then it was Brandon. Like I think now in that tier,
I can't believe that I'm the guy making the markument.
That's true. You are. It's remarkable.
I thought it would be you.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I love Mark. I have high hopes for him. At the same time, I'm protecting the stars here. Brandon has star power. Give me the star. Mark is someone that I think, especially with this defense, with Charles Lee and having somebody to protect the rim. Remember when we were talking about some three-point shooting centers with Charles Lee and Josh Longstaff? They said, yeah, that's important. We want our guys to be skilled. Mark is going to shoot some threes, take the over on the 10. We'll see if that happens this year. But he first goes to protecting the rim. That's the number one thing they want their guy to do. So you're right. Like, Mark is a big deal. Unfortunately, we've seen the Hornets play a lot of games without him, but it hasn't been great defensively when they've played without him. So hopefully Mark can be there.
And obviously, if we just look at next season and go, what are the realistic leaps that both of those players could take? Brandon, what's the highest ceiling that he could get to? What's the highest ceiling that Mark could get to? Then obviously Brandon Miller's the answer. Like his high can take the Hornets, further places. But if we're in this conversation about least afford to lose, I'm looking at this as like, what's the realistic thing that both of those players can give? And I think the Hornets can least afford to lose the rim protection as opposed to maybe the hot 3-point shooting that Brandon's going to give you.
No, Mark matters a ton for them. I mean, they got destroyed down low. I have the vision of the Orlando Magic game when Steve Clifford told us that they weren't going to have Mark Williams the rest of the year. They just got dunked on. I mean, there was about 13 different highlight dunks because they just weren't tall enough to defend the rim. And Nick Richards isn't somebody that you trust enough, even though there's like some pretty good rim protection percentage numbers from Nick Richards. But like also you see some of the mistakes that maybe those stats don't pick up. And Mark is just big. It's funny to watch Mark in the paint. And he absolutely is in the minds of guards that drive there and get tested like on previous drives. You can see guards just have to make a secondary decision. If you freeze those ball handlers, then that helps your defense out so much, just allowing them to be indecisive. So you're right. The presence alone, I think it matters. Summer cleanup time, me or you? Where do you want to go here?
Well, you have the least cleanup to do. My room is very dirty. So you go ahead and clean up your list. We did some lists last year, top 35 players, top 35 nicknames, because the Hornets did a top 35 35th anniversary after doing a 30th anniversary. I'm looking forward to the 40th anniversary when we redo all of these lists. We've got to get these lists taken care of first. So, Walker, who is your how many players do you have left in your top 35 list?
I have one player, Doug.
We were number one. We left number one on the table.
We kept pushing off from last year, the 35th anniversary. We kept pushing off a list that only had one player left to reveal, and here we are, August 12th, 2024.
Who's it gonna be?
Revealing this, but I don't know. Well, I divided it into tiers. Like I kind of want to go through the list, but we don't have enough time probably. So. This tier is a tier by himself, and the tier is called King Kemba. So with that being said,
who's it going to
be? Yeah, I will reveal the best Charlotte Hornet of all time, top dude in the franchise, now back with the franchise, Kemba Walker.
Whoa! Man, it would have been great if it was somebody else in the King Kemba category.
It would have been phenomenal. Yeah. So Kemba edges out the other guys that I had. LJ was 2. A mistake that I wanted to clean up from my top 30 team. People were mad about Alonzo Mourning beating LJ, so I flipped those guys. I have LJ 2, Alonzo 3, Muggsy 4, Glenn Rice 5, Del Curry 6, Baron Davis 7. I think you're in a different tier with some of those guys. But yeah, Kemba Walker takes the top spot.
Now, I know Brandon didn't win Rookie of the Year, but he had a really excellent, probably a Rookie of the Year type of season.
That's funny.
If he wouldn't have been up against 2 aliens. So when you look at the bottom of your list, do you think Brandon cracks that with that rookie season? And it's a sad state of affairs that we are in here with if he could do that. But could he do that?
Yeah, in that tier, 35 through 31, the category was called Hornets Scoring It, Scoring It. That's what it was. It was guys that were big-time scorers that were on bad teams that were playing here for a very limited amount of time.
Check.
So 35 was Armin Gilliam. 34 was Cody Zeller. 33, Gordon Hayward. 32, Jason Richardson. 31, Terry Rozier. So could Brandon Miller, with one season worth of productivity, get into the Hornets scoring it?
Probably not.
It's tough.
I think he's got one more year.
Yeah.
He's past Cody. He's past the Hammer. I don't know that he's past Terry.
No.
Terry might be a little low on that. That's going to be the stopper. He's got a couple of years before he's past Terry.
Yeah. So Terry, I could
Terry's
see
probably
putting
too low there. I was probably mad at you when you said Terry that way.
Yeah, you were. The guys that I had ahead of him, 30, Matt Geiger, probably put Terry ahead of Matt.
Terry is above Matt. What were you thinking?
Hey, man, it was respected at the time. But this is the other problem, right? Kenny Gaddison, number 29. Yeah, so, I think most people would put Kenny Gaddison above him. Most people would, but Derek Coleman is also ahead. And people can't stand Derek Coleman. This is the feelings part of it, right? When you go back and actually see the production, this is the thing.
The problem is that's all we have. All we have are vibes and feelings because Terry lost 2 play-in games. He doesn't have any playoff success.
That's right.
If one playoff series, not even win, vaults Kemba to the top, we don't have playoff series to make these lists. We have vibes, feelings.
That's what I'm saying. So it was tough. That list is how I balanced feelings, vibes, production, talent, and that's the list that I spit out. Top 35. Let's go to your list. You still have some work to do. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Summer cleaning, baby. We continue to roll through here. We have 5 more names to get to on Doug's top 35 nicknames list of all time. And then, yes, we still have to roll all the way. We got a lot of who wore it best to do.
14.
Yeah, we're not even close to done. This will be done in 2025. So don't miss it in the meantime, because if you miss an episode with who wore it best, there's a great chance we don't get to it until a year later. That's still to come, Locked On Hornets. Top 5 nicknames ever. Let's see the list, Doug. Who do you have at the top of the list?
Well, I'm going to go to the bottom of the list. I know you want the top of the list, but I'm not going to give it to you yet. I feel it's necessary to go through my entire list. I've got a few minutes here. We'll start in the honorable mentions category with Malik Monk, God of Dunk. Unfortunately, he did not show off enough dunks to get back to that nickname. That was a nickname that he probably picked up in high school. Vernon Maxwell, Mad Max. Eddie Johnson, Steady Eddie. Hersey Hawkins, the Hawk. PJ Brown, Big Cat. If I had to do this list over, I might. The problem is there were like 9 Big Cats, and that's why I penalized PJ Brown. I love the Big Cat. There were like 9 Big Cats, and there was a particular Big Cat in Charlotte.
That's right. Yeah, so we've had 2. We had Andres Galarraga's, who I think of for Big Cat, who was a Brave that was liked at the time. But even in the city of Charlotte, PJ is not the ultimate Big Cat. So, yeah, it's tough, but I hear you. I like Big Cat, too.
Number 35, Dwayne Bacon, Baconator. Number 34, world-class Gerald Glass, who is on the Who Wore It Best list only because of that awesome nickname, Gerald World Class Glass.
Wait, so you went through your honorable mentions here, and now we're starting the list? This is going to take a million years to get through.
It will if you keep interrupting me. Here we go. Number 33, Mick Bob, Josh McRoberts. Number 32, Lord Byron Mullins. Way too low. I don't know what I was thinking there. Number 31, The Rifleman, Chuck Person, who was named after the star of a 50s Western TV show of the same name. Number 30, G Money, Glenn Rice. Number 29, so good, Ricky Pierce. Do you remember Ricky Pierce's nickname at number 29?
No, I don't remember Ricky Pierce.
This was given to him by the Sonics play-by-play announcer in the 90s after he overheard Dana Barros call Pierce this under his breath while watching him hit a mid-court shot. Ricky Pierce's nickname was Big Paper Daddy.
Yeah, remember that now. Big Paper Daddy.
Number 28, Rambo, Kurt Rambis. Number 27, Dell, Wardell Curry. Shortened it to Dell. It was savvy. Dell Curry. Number 26, Black Hole, Armin Gilliam. Number 25, The Twirl, Earl Cureton. The late Earl Cureton died recently. I don't know why I decided to bring things down by mentioning that.
All right, no, you're right. R.I.P.
Number 24, The Gat Man, Kenny Gaddison. Number 23, Tommy Gun, Tom Chambers. That's not funny. Number 22, Scary Terry, Terry Rozier. Number 21, Plum Dog Millionaire. Number 20, The Plastic Man, Stacey Augman. Number 19, Nick Richards, Big Nick Energy. Number 18, Nails, Lee Nailon. Number 17, Captain Jack, Steven Jackson. Number 16, oh, this one hurts. This one's not an RIP, but it's an RIP in my heart. God of Thunder, JT Thor. Any comment?
R.I.P. What do you want? R.I.P.
Number 15, Apollo 33, Jamario Moon. So good.
Oh, that is, yeah, fantastic.
Number 14, The Chief, Robert Parrish. Number 13, Tractor Trailer for Robert Trailer, R.I.P. Number 12, Lynn Sanity, Jeremy Lin. Number 11, B. Diddy, Baron Davis. Number 10, Steven Jackson's second appearance, Stack Jack. Number 9, one of my personal favorite players of all time for the Hornets, Jamal Mashburn, Monster Mash. Number 8, Tsunami Poppy, Kelly Oubre. Number 7, Matt Geiger, the Geiger Counter. Number 6, The Hammer, Armin Gilliam, his second appearance on the list. One of 2 players, I think, to have 2 Menchies on the list. Here we go. You ready? Number 5.
Yeah, I guess this is it, right? Okay, yep, I'm ready. Never before heard, nickname, list names, all of that stuff. I'm ready to hear it.
I want to see if you remember this one. This is a Bobcat.
Okay.
Maybe an original Bobcat? Joel Prisbilla? Was he an original Bobcat? Was he on the...
I don't know if he was original. I know he was with Portland for a while.
Close enough, though. Joel Prisbilla. Do you remember his nickname?
I do not, but I don't know what it is. What is it?
Joel Prisbilla, the Vanilla Gorilla.
Oh, my God. Okay, yeah. That's...
The Vanilla Gorilla.
You know, I mean, I had to imagine that.
This is on Basketball Reference.
Yeah, I have to imagine, like, when you said it just, okay, is there an animal that rhymes here? That makes sense, gorilla. But, okay, Vanilla Gorilla. Got it. That's a great one. What's number 4?
Number 4, Al Jefferson, Big Al.
Yeah, just
Here's what I love about
simple.
it. It's simple, but it's illustrative of his bigness, of his dominance of the left block. There was a paint can that they brought out for his All-NBA award, and he is a little bit shaped like a paint can, so I think it's perfect. But he was Big Al. He was a big, and not only was he big in stature, he was a big personality. He was funny. He was personable. He's been on the show. He's a friend of the show. Mm-hmm. Big Al.
He is indeed. Yeah, and it's funny. Like everybody remembers that marketing campaign, Big Al's Paint.
I've already revealed. I really only had 4 left because I remember now that I already revealed that Grandmama Larry Johnson is the winner of this.
That's true.
Is the winner of this list. So I really only have 2 remaining. Number 3, Tyrone Bogues, otherwise known as Muggsy. Mm-hmm. Now I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this. They're going to say Muggsy. That's not. It is a nickname, but I mean, how is that going to beat the Hammer or Vanilla Gorilla or the Geiger Counter? And I think that Muggsy is this interesting nickname that, like, I know it doesn't really connote small.
You're right. This is totally right. Yeah.
But I think the man made the nickname. Sometimes the nickname makes the man. But the man made the nickname, and when I think Muggsy, I think small, but I think small greatness in spite of small or greatness because of small, maybe both of those at the same time. But Muggsy, I don't know what about it connotes small, but it does.
It's one of these words that sounds like what it is, and I didn't realize that Muggsy was, you don't really think about it. And you're right, it doesn't mean small. You can't describe something as Muggsy and then everybody else understands, okay, it's teeny tiny. But that's what you hear. You hear, okay, yeah, it does sound like it does connote some small, some kind of tiny size. And so you're right, I'm with you. You got to give love to Muggsy. He's a top 3 nickname for sure.
All right, final one here. Can you, so I've gone through the list. Let's see if you can spoil it for people. Is there a name that you haven't heard yet that you feel like deserves to be in this top 3?
Well, I mean, Diddy comes to mind. B. Diddy for Baron Davis.
He was in there. You missed him. He was
okay,
I was going through it very quickly. B. Diddy was number 11.
Okay, so I didn't hear that one. That would be the only one. I can't think of another one.
Here we go. This was a Bobcat. Well, probably arguably the best Bobcat of all time. This nickname really described perfectly, and he had a couple of good nicknames, but I picked this one because it described perfectly his style of play and what made him so fun to watch in a time where there wasn't a lot of fun things to watch for the franchise. And that's, of course, Gerald Wallace and the nickname Crash.
No, very, very much deserving to be at that second spot. I think you got the top 3 right. I like the top 3.
Wow, all right.
I think in that order, baby.
Some rare agreement here on my list. We agree. I think you and I align a lot when it comes to basketball theory, what makes teams good, what makes teams bad, what makes players good, what makes players bad. But you and I often, when it comes to this sort of more subjective stuff, you and I don't always see eye to eye. So this is a rare moment of unity.
I think you put a lot of weight on and anger on having Jamal Mashburn like barely in the top 15 on my best Hornets of all time list. I think that's what you're like, this guy having monster mash so far down. That in fact, he is 15th on my list, and the category is called Doug Gets Mad at Me. It has everything to do with Jamal Mashburn being 15. I love you, Mash. I got my reasons. That'll do it. The list, they are done. Summer cleanup. I mean, everything looks spotless now. We still have to go through who wore it best. We will not be able to do that for this episode. We lied to you in the bullet points. We will not lie to you every single time. We will try to complete this list as we go on, but at least we got done with the nicknames and the top 35 Hornets of all time list. That'll do it. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Doug Branson, his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Remember, 3 days a week now. It is not every day. We are not your first listen every day, at least for the next 6 weeks. So just keep that in mind.
Just listen to today's show twice. You can still listen every day.
That's fair.
You probably missed something. Just listen to it twice.
That's fair. Just do that instead. You're right about that. So listen to us on the podcast and then watch us on YouTube. But we're only putting up 3 new episodes per week. But we will be back with you tomorrow. We'll see you then.